Indiana front and center on the national stage as Republicans battle for the presidential nomination. Donald Trump and Ted Cruz going head-to-head in Tuesday's primary, with John Kasich staying on the sidelines. And for Cruz, it's do or die this Tuesday. Cruz saying that the Indiana primary will make or break his bid to stop Trump from walking away with the GOP nomination. Newt Gingrich is a former Speaker of the House and a Fox News contributor. He joins us right now. Mr. Speaker, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Well, it's good to be with you.
What do you think? You think Indiana is the make-or-break situation? I mean, if Trump wins Indiana, is it over?
Oh, sure. Look, Indiana is make or break for Cruz, and it's a bump in the road for Trump. If Cruz can't win Indiana, and by win I mean get virtually all the delegates, do something like close to what he did in Wisconsin, there's no possibility that he can stop Trump. It'll just be over sometime Wednesday morning. On the other hand, if Trump doesn't do particularly well in Indiana, he has so much overall momentum and is such a huge lead, he could still win by winning in New Jersey and California on June 7th. So for Trump, it is a significant event. For Cruz, it's life and death.
We're going to talk with Bobby Knight coming up, and obviously the famous coach has backed Donald Trump, but then, of course, the governor in Indiana has gone with Ted Cruz. So, but he also had nice things to say about Trump. So how important are these endorsements? Well,
I'm not quite sure. I mean, if I were measuring Indiana and I was at Purdue this week talking to students and then talking to Republicans and to local leaders, I would say that basketball probably beats politicians in Indiana. If I had to choose between a legendary coach and a very good governor, probably the legendary coach has more impact on the voters of Indiana. But I think in the end, what it comes down to in the age of television is the candidates. Trump has an enormous ability to reach through that medium, whether it's on YouTube or it's on Facebook or it's on radio and TV. His personality seems to be moving the system in ways that none of us, and I include me, none of us could have predicted 3 or 4 months ago.
Will that personality and that leadership that we see over and over from Trump be enough to beat Hillary Clinton come November?
Probably.
Yeah.
There's a poll out this morning that's from Rasmussen that shows them tied at 38-38. The fact is Hillary will be the most unpopular Democrat ever nominated. Trump will probably be the most unpopular Republican ever nominated. So you have high negatives on both sides. But there's a huge difference. Trump has, and I would just say this about everybody who's watched this race, none of us have gotten it right. You go back 2 or 3 weeks before New York, nobody would have said he's going to get 64%. You go back the Sunday before the Pennsylvania primary, nobody would have said he's going to carry every single county in 5 states. He is doing something remarkable. Republican turnout is up 60%. Democratic turnout is down about 20%. And those things bode very powerful messages for the fall. So I think when Trump pivots, which he will once he has the nomination, and he begins to think about 100% of the American electorate and how to reach Latinos and African Americans and Asian Americans and younger voters, I think you're going to see a very remarkable campaign, just as up till now what you've seen is historically unthinkable. It's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, and now it's about, well, who might he get around him? Who is Trump going to put around him in a cabinet? So there's been some talk, I'm hearing basically on Wall Street, that he's talked to Henry Kravitz about being his potential Treasury Secretary.
He might have. I mean, I think his bias will be to find business leaders in the real world who have actually done things as opposed to academics and lawyers and politicians. I also think there's a possibility, and somebody said to me yesterday, and I thought it was a very interesting idea, he might reach out to a military leader to be his vice presidential nominee. He doesn't have to be restricted to the traditional politician nominee. He could seek somebody like a General Mattis, who was a remarkable leader, and the number of other folks who would fit that. There are 5 or 6 senior officers, all of whom would be quite attractive and would eliminate this question about whether or not Trump would be safe with national security.
What about you? Would you consider being his vice presidential pick?
Oh, I don't think that's likely. Somebody asked me yesterday about vice president. I said I didn't know that Disney was looking, but I've always loved going to Disney World, so if they call, I'll certainly consider it.
Well, in terms of the cabinet, though, have you discussed a cabinet position with Donald Trump?
No, and I don't think he's discussed it with anybody. He has a very good sense of sequence, and his critique of Cruz for picking a vice presidential nominee when he clearly didn't have a path to be nominated, I think was exactly right. The time for Trump to think about the next stage is when he finishes this stage. This stage is called getting delegates.
Right.
He's very close to closing out the entire party, all of the establishment, 16 other candidates, and getting to be the nominee even before, if he wins next Tuesday, he'll be the nominee before California. Then it's time to start asking the next set of questions, one of which is who'd be the most effective vice presidential nominee.
Yeah, all very, very fair points. Well, at this point, I think the Cruz campaign is looking at the next couple of weeks and saying, look, we got to pull some magic out of hats here. I mean, he names Carly Fiorina as his vice presidential pick. Obviously, that's very unheard of to do that at this point in the campaign. Hey, also, Heidi Cruz, his wife, is talking about what's important about Ted Cruz. I want you to hear this soundbite that she made a comment about him being an immigrant. Listen to this.
Ted is an immigrant. He is Hispanic. We can unify this party.
He's Hispanic. What did you think about that comment, Newt?
Well, okay. Works better for Marco Rubio. And of course, she can't really mean he is an immigrant because, of course, he is an American for the purpose of running for president. So Cruz has never run as an immigrant. He's never particularly identified with the Latino community. That doesn't mean he wouldn't be effective. Look, I think that Ted Cruz is a very smart man. I think he clearly was a national class debater. He was a brilliant lawyer, and he's run a very good campaign. Out of 17 candidates, he's one of the 2 guys who have still really survived. That's not a small achievement, but I don't see that as a major point of appeal. The problem Cruz has is there's no poll that shows that Cruz is dramatically more likely to beat Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. And if you keep losing primaries, and particularly if you come in 3rd in 4 out of 5 this last Tuesday, you have a pretty hard argument to make that you're more electable. And so that's why I think the arguments, they're the right arguments. They just don't have factual background to make them work.
You know, it looks like he's counting on a contested convention, Ted Cruz is. And yet, if Donald Trump gets the 1237 delegates before the convention, the establishment and the Republican Party will have to get behind him. What changes once the GOP really gets behind Donald Trump in a big way? You know,
look, almost everything changes.
Really?
This is a lot like a sporting event. There's no reason for the underdog team to quit if you're only halfway through the 4th quarter. They have every right to play it out. But there comes a moment, and for Trump it may come as soon as Tuesday night. If he wins Indiana, and I was told a little while ago, John Heinz told me that there's a poll out that puts Trump rather up by about 15 points in Indiana. If that's true, and he wins Indiana by a significant margin, then the fact is the next morning he is the nominee. Not the presumptive nominee, he's the nominee. Right. It's going to happen. I think almost instantly you'll see people's attitudes start to move towards accommodating him, adjusting to him, figuring out how to work with him. Very few Republicans can tolerate the idea of Hillary Clinton as president. And I think that drives them towards Trump almost immediately once he has, in fact, clearly got the delegate votes.
Right, which, of course, gives him that further push. Poised to be held.
You're right. It all becomes circular.
Right.
The more you get, the more momentum you have. Therefore, the more you get. Therefore, the more momentum you have. He's right at the edge of that kind of cycle.
We'll be watching. An exciting Tuesday night is ahead. Newt Gingrich, always a pleasure. Good to see you, sir.